Good morning. Happy Wednesday. I'm laughing because we have a very special guest, which you'll hear shortly, I'm sure. So we come to you live this Wednesday morning for our weekly dose of RHI stories of courage, hope, attitude, and inspiration. Brought to you by our awesome longtime sponsors, Wilson Kehoe Winningham. And if you feel inspired by Rachel's story, who's our special guest, and her daughter's joining us, hopefully you can hear her by now, then feel free to click on the link that we'll be posting soon, and you can make a gift to support the work that we do at RHI, helping our patients through philanthropy with donors just like you, making a big difference in their lives, getting them from surviving to thriving. So I welcome Rachel Scholz.
Thank you for having me.
Yes. So I don't even know your story. Why don't you share with us like how you came to know RHI?
Okay, so in February of 2008, I was walking across the street and was hit by a car, and was at Methodist for a week and then came here for 6 weeks. I suffered multiple orthopedic injuries. Both legs were broken, my left arm was broken, and a traumatic brain injury. And when I left here, I then went to NRC for outpatient therapy, and over the series of like 5 years, I ended up having 17 surgeries to kind of fix everything that was broken. And so I had outpatient therapy for a really long time at NRC. And then not only for the orthopedic stuff, but for speech therapy, and then Dr. Backhouse, was instrumental with the neuro rehab. So I tell people all the time that she saved my life in multiple different ways, because when I left here, the journey had really just begun for me. I didn't realize all the impacts that the traumatic brain injury would have, and it affected every aspect of my life. And as my life continued to go, I tried to reintegrate back into my daily routine and stuff. Well, then new problems would arise and come up, and so I continued to go back to Dr. Backhouse and say, okay, now I never had this before. I never experienced seizures or that type of stuff. And then so I would go through the neuro retesting and everything and kind of start all over again. And, she really helped with the depression that came along with that. And so she's been fantastic in being there for me each time I have a setback, and being able to support me and kind of guide me through that. So. And after I was here, it actually inspired me to go back to school, and I became an occupational therapy assistant. And so now I find, great joy in working with patients and kind of helping them through that journey. And I think kind of educating them that, that it's okay, and that, you can get through this. And I think sometimes having somebody to be able to relate to is fantastic for them as well. So I get a lot of joy from that, and kind of finding a purpose in everything that I went through. It's like, okay, I went through that for a reason, kind of essentially. Now I'm here to kind of make good of what I went through. So
Right.
Yeah.
Right. You bring up a really good point. So many people, I think, don't realize that when a person has a traumatic brain injury, and they come to rehab, wherever it is, RHI or somewhere else, at some point they're discharged, right?
Yes.
Because the traditional rehabilitation that we think of, walking again, dressing again, thinking again, speaking again, all of those different things with PT, OT, speech, they kind of reach a plateau.
Absolutely.
And so then they're discharged, and what they find is that there are so many other, I don't want to say issues, but challenges that they're trying to work through.
Sure.
And there's no help out there to help them. And that's what you're talking about, right?
Yeah,
with
absolutely.
Dr. Backhouse.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. It was like, okay, I'm done with this stage in the recovery, and now I'm ready to move on to, being able to drive again. Well, how do I navigate that? What happens if I fail? Where do I go to from there? Or, okay, now I'm driving again, and I want to go back to work, or I want to go back to school, or I want to do something. And then you get into it and you think, wait a minute, I have a new normal. How do I navigate the new normal? How do I get past this? How do I accept this? You know, that was something that it took me years to do. I thought I was okay, but I wasn't. You know, it was kind of like underlying that, you know, and then it just kind of came to a roaring head of, oh my gosh, you know, I need to mourn the old me. I haven't mourned that. And I need, in order to accept the new me, I need to be able to mourn that. And how do I do that? How do I begin to do that without falling into the depths of depression and be able to let go of that? And that was the hardest thing for me, was kind of breaking up with the old me and the old life, and being able to say, okay, you know, these are things that I'm never going to be able to do again, and it's okay that I can't do those, because now I'm able to do other things that I wasn't able to do before. And you know, my empathy and my compassion definitely increased infinitely. I mean, it was unbelievable to be able to make that transition and to kind of see that side of me kind of blossom and develop. So, but being able to do that is very, very hard. It's very hard. And, you know, you don't realize what challenges tomorrow is going to come. And so it's amazing how you go to bed thinking, everything's good today. Okay, I've got my new normal, we're good. And then you wake up and you're handed a completely different new basket. And it's like, oh, whoa, where did this come from? How do I navigate this? And so it's fantastic to be able to have somebody that can lead you to not just being able to provide advice, but other people that have navigated those same things, and to be able to touch base with that. That's something else that I'm involved with, the peer mentoring. I was mentored initially, and now I have somebody that I mentor, and so that's fantastic.
Yeah. Just
to be able to have somebody that you can call late at night and say, oh my gosh, or email them, and you know, be a back that you can lean on and be there to support somebody. So yeah, it's amazing all the different aspects of support. I went through BICS as well, the Brain Injury Support Group, and that was not only good for me, but it was great for my family too, to be able to learn about, you know, how they could be there to support me and to understand the injuries and to know what to expect. In fact, the binder that I actually have copied with Dr. Backhouse's permission multiple times and passed it out to both patients and caregivers and that I treat, and say, you know, this might provide you a little bit of insight on what's going on, because not everybody's, you know, fortunate enough to come here. And so being able to, and I think having the caregivers understand what you're going through too is the hardest thing. They don't understand what you're going through. They want to help, but they don't know how. And so BICS was fantastic for my family to be able to have a little bit of insight onto what's going on, and maybe not completely understand me and, you know, my struggles and stuff, but at least a little, and being able to navigate and talk to amongst themselves too, of sharing stories and stuff. So it's been fantastic.
Yeah.
That's
a really good point. The BICS program, you know, that's something that, an intervention that was funded through gifts by our donors here at RHI.
Okay.
So Dr. Backhouse is the one who spearheaded that.
Yeah. And
she designed a group intervention for families struggling and learning to cope with the long-term effects of traumatic brain injury, because there was nothing implemented. Nothing had been created, and it's a very common chronic challenge for patients and families that have had brain injury. And so she created this intervention, and the foundation funded her time and the infrastructure and everything needed to study and analyze if it was effective. And it was. And that has led to millions of dollars in grant funding, state and federal.
Wow.
The BICS program is now being offered clinically.
Oh.
So we offer that group program, Brain Injury Coping Skills, to our patients. The Mayo Clinic has adopted it.
Oh my gosh.
They're doing it. There are various places throughout the world and country that are doing it as well. And that was all funded through the gifts of our donors. That's the seed that was planted through philanthropy, which is what we're talking about. You know, if for donors that are thinking of making a gift or who have made a gift, that's the power that your investment in RHI can make. So we literally changed the way patients and families with brain injury are handling this chronic issue of how to cope with the effects for the rest of their lives.
Yeah.
And so that's what you're talking about. You participated in
Absolutely. And it saved my life time and time again, because there were so many times where the depression would take over and I didn't know how to cope with that. And so I would go back to that and say, okay, what did I learn? What tools do I have in my toolbox now that I can get out and kind of help me through this? And you know, even although it's so frustrating, because I heard somebody say once that a traumatic brain injury is a survivor is a silent sufferer, that you can't tell sometimes when somebody has a traumatic brain injury. And you know, oftentimes you hide it, you mask it, you overcompensate for things that you know that you're lacking or that you're struggling with, because it's embarrassing sometimes. And so being able to have that, and it's I know it saved my life multiple times, because it's like, okay, I don't have to turn to suicide. I can, this gets better. This will, you know, I'll overcome this. This doesn't have to define me, which was so hard, because, you know, you feel like, oh my gosh, how can it not define me? This is who I am, but it doesn't have to. And I learned that through BICS, that you know, that it doesn't have to define me.
Right.
So it's been amazing for me. I know, had it not been for RHI and for BICS, I wouldn't be here. I know that, especially seeing other patients that don't have that ability to come here and to experience that. I know that I probably would have committed suicide, because I wouldn't have been able to deal with everything that I was handed. So it's been amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, think about that for a moment, for everybody watching this to know, for those of you who have donated and supported RHI Foundation, you helped save Rachel's life, and there are so many patients like you who deal with that. That's why that need was identified, because there's such a higher occurrence of suicidal tendency in folks who've had brain injury, and it's years after they're discharged from rehab.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah. In fact, I didn't start really seeing the side effects of my injury until about 7 years post. That's when I started having the seizures. You know, I was to the point where I was like, oh, I'm going to go back to work. I'm going to reclaim my life. I'm going to start over. And then out of the blue, I started having seizures and all these complications. And I'm like, whoa, where is this coming from? And it was because I was, you know, I was pushing my brain to a point where my brain was like, whoa, slow down. You can't do this. And so that was hard to accept, and to, you know, to realize that, oh, I'm not different than everybody else with a traumatic brain injury. I still have these limitations, and I will always have these limitations. This is something that it's not like a broken leg or something where I can increase my endurance and, you know, get better. I've got limitations now, and I have to respect those limitations. And you know, I realize that if I don't manage, I know that if I don't manage things, I'm gonna slide right back to where I was. And so it's lifelong. I will always struggle with it, and that's hard. But because of BICS and everything, I've been able to be okay with that and to accept it. So,
Right.
yeah.
And it's an ongoing class. We have multiple classes going on now, because there was such a waiting list for our BICS program.
Oh.
Yes, and we've hired many more neuropsychologists to facilitate that, so it's not just Dr. Backhouse now.
Wonderful.
Yeah, it is. It is. It's neat to see such a need which we knew was there, but now it's just, evidenced by all the people who are participating in it. And it's covered very frequently by vocational rehab. It's covered by insurance, workers' compensation, but it's not always covered. And so the RHI Foundation, for folks who need it, like yourself, they're struggling, and it can be years, like you said, 7 years after your injury. But they can't pay for it themselves. There's no insurance to cover it. So the RHI Foundation, your gifts, we step in and we provide financial assistance so that people who need it can get the help that they need through our brain injury coping skills and the couples care.
Yes.
Because there's a higher incidence of divorce, much higher, in couples who've had brain injury as well.
Yeah. I myself have not experienced that, but I can understand how, because my husband doesn't understand what I'm going through. His personality and my personality is totally different, and I wanted to go through the couples thing.
I'm going to
but
give you a little baby some toys here.
He was unwilling to do so because he keeps saying, well, it keeps getting better, so why do we need, it'll keep getting better, But he doesn't realize that this is probably as good as it's going to get.
Yeah.
And he doesn't let things that bother me bother him. And so he, says, well, it was a bad day. Well, tomorrow will be better. And that's frustrating for me. But there have been multiple days where I've thought, I don't know if this is going to work. In fact, I told Dr. Backhouse, I said, I almost feel like my life would be easier if I wasn't married, because I wouldn't have expectations and get let down.
Your own expectations.
My own expectations. And I can totally understand why the divorce rate would be so high, because it puts a complete, marriage is hard enough, and it puts a completely different strain on the marriage and complicates things even more. So I wish we had been able to go through the couples, but oh well.
Well, you can.
No, I don't think he'll ever. I don't think I'll ever be able to convince him to go. Especially now, being 11 years out, he'll be like, "Why? Things are fine."
Yeah.
And then I think he would probably be like, "Why aren't things okay?" And so but it's forced me to be able to change everything about the way I communicate with him. And I was the one doing all the work. And so, but for somebody who maybe doesn't have the clarity that I have and the insight that I have, we probably wouldn't have made it as long as we have, because I've essentially done all the work. So, but yeah.
And we've had all kinds of couples care education that we provide to people, and it's so funny for us to hear clinicians that are learning about it thinking, well, I should take that with my husband, or I should take that with my wife.
Yes.
Even though there's no brain injury involved.
Sure.
It's just the tools that they teach and the tools that they give and everything that they teach these couples on how to communicate and how to work through things is so valuable. As you said, every marriage is a challenge anyway, and then add on top of it additional struggles from brain injury. So it's really great to see everything growing and RHI's ability to provide new interventions, identify new needs, chronic needs, and address them and try to help the patients for the rest of their lives, because it's long after. Injury.
It's lifelong.
Yeah.
It's truly lifelong. And every once in a while you get a reminder of, oh yeah, you've got this thing that's going to limit you. And then you have to kind of go back to square one and say, okay, I hear you loud and clear. I've got to respect this and try to navigate my way through this battle. So,
So how do you feel RHI has had the biggest impact in your life?
RHI gave me the ability to live with the injuries that I have. It gave me the ability to have hope in knowing that my life doesn't have to be defined by this. It's given me the ability to overcome everything, and to kind of find peace and acceptance in my new normal. and to know that, okay, it's different, it's new, but it's okay. And, you know, to be able to meet other people has inspired me to, okay, they can cope with it, they can keep going, I can do it too. And so it's kind of given me a drive and, like I said, hope that life will be okay, and that this is okay, and that life can be good despite all the limitations that I have now. And so yeah, I would say that it's and like I said, it's given me a huge amount of tools to keep pulling out of my toolbox and say, okay, you know, this problem can be fixed with this. And if I don't have the tool, to be able to go back, to know that I have a resource to go back to and say, I need to fix this. How do I do it? And know that I can have avenues to turn to
Right.
to fix those. So yeah, I have hope now.
You know, it fills my heart hearing. We do this every week. We bring in past patients from RHI to hear how RHI has had an impact on their life, and specifically how gifts from our donors have helped to change lives. That's what it's all about.
Yes.
And it's just a wonderful way to kind of fuel myself and my passion for what I do.
Sure.
So thank you for
Oh,
coming.
no, thank you.
And for sharing your story.
I feel like I owe RHI everything. I mean, every chance that I get to help in any way that I can. I feel like it's vital, not for me, but for everybody else that needs the services now. Mm-hmm. It truly is vital. It's very, very important. So,
and yet to come.
yeah.
You know, how old were you when you had your injury? Right?
I was 25. And I, you know, I can't even imagine where I would be. Well, I know I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for RHI.
Mm-hmm.
So,
it can happen to anybody, at any time.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I was almost 4 months to the day for my wedding day, and I was just on my way to work, thinking about, it was Valentine's Day, and I was thinking about Valentine's Day and planning the wedding, and then suddenly my whole life stopped, and everything changed. There is absolutely no aspect of my life that is the same. Every single thing has changed, and if it wasn't for RHI, I wouldn't have been able to deal with that. So.
Well, I'm so glad you're here.
Well, I'm thrilled that I'm here. I'm thrilled. Yes.
And we have another addition to the world. Let's get a close up of little Haley. This is Rachel's almost 1-year-old daughter. She's 11 months old. Look how beautiful she is. Thank you for bringing her in.
Oh, thank you for letting me bring her in.
Oh, it's wonderful to have her here and joining us. And what a special little girl, you know.
Yeah, if it wasn't for RHI, she wouldn't be here.
You know, that's another thing. It's not just our current patients. It's our patients that we have for years to come, and it's generations. You're affecting generations. There are patients we have who have children and grandchildren, and everybody in the family is impacted by the work that we do here. It's not just the patient. We treat the entire family, and it's a ripple effect throughout their whole life. So thank you, you know, to our donors who make it happen, what we are able to do for everybody, for you, for your daughter, your husband, your parents.
My parents,
everybody,
siblings.
right? Your siblings.
Yeah.
Everyone has felt the impact. So.
And now I feel like even the patients that I treat now feel the impact of RHI, because I pass along a lot of the tools that I learned to them. And not every therapist is able to do that and to share that that kind of intimate, hey, I know most people don't think about this and you're not thinking about this, but when you go home, you're going to experience this. You know, you're going to have this struggle, and here's what you can do to overcome that. So yeah, it doesn't just stop with me, for sure.
Right. Well, thank you again, Haley. Thank you for coming in. Rachel, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you.
And sharing your story and your thoughts and your life and all that you've been through.
Well, thank you for having me.
So thanks to our sponsors, Wilson Kehoe Winningham, and we will see you again next week. If you want to help support changing lives, saving lives, and generations, making an impact click on our link and make a gift. We need support even now and into the future. Thank you so much.